Hernando de Soto was a Spanish explorer and conquistador who led expeditions into territories now known as Nicaragua and the Yucatán Peninsula. He is primarily remembered for leading the first European expedition into regions that are now part of the United States, exploring areas such as Florida, Georgia, Alabama, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Mississippi. Notably, in 1540, he became the first recorded European to cross the Mississippi River. De Soto's expedition was one of the most ambitious undertakings of its time. Driven by tales from native tribes and coastal explorers about gold and routes to China or the Pacific, he led his forces on a journey that began in Tampa Bay on Florida's west coast. The arrival at Tampa Bay marked the start of a challenging expedition fraught with cultural misunderstandings. Hernando de Soto, along with his fleet of 9 ships, disembarked with an impressive force, over 600 men, 220 horses, and supplies for an ambitious journey. The bay's landscape, with its dense mangroves, small islands, and waters teeming with life, offered an exotic beauty but also concealed dangers and adversities. Early challenges. The challenges began almost immediately. The region's subtropical climate brought intense heat and constant swarms of mosquitoes, conditions foreign to the Spaniards. Additionally, interactions with local indigenous peoples, such as the Toca-Bega, were fraught with tension. These inhabitants, deeply connected to their natural environment, were skilled fishers and farmers but did not possess the gold de Soto hoped to find. The absence of precious metals among the Toca-Bega quickly led to confrontations and violence. For the Spaniards, accustomed to finding riches among the peoples of Mexico and Peru, the lack of gold was a significant disappointment. For the Toca-Bega, the Europeans' arrival represented a threat to their way of life, turning what could have been a cultural exchange into bitter conflict. Conflicts and exploration. Armed with advanced military technology for the time, including firearms, crossbows, and swords, the Spaniards sought to impose their presence on the indigenous peoples. However, they faced fierce resistance. The natives, using their knowledge of the terrain, employed guerrilla tactics to evade capture and retaliate, causing significant difficulties for de Soto's expedition. Despite these obstacles, de Soto's determination to find riches and expand Spanish influence drove him to continue. His expedition was not merely a military venture, but also a journey of exploration and survival in a hostile territory. A pivotal figure during this journey was Juan Ortiz, a Spaniard who had survived a previous expedition and lived among the indigenous peoples for years. Ortiz became an essential asset to the expedition, serving as an interpreter and guide. His experience and fluency in local languages allowed for more effective communication with the natives, though his warnings about the dangers ahead were largely ignored by de Soto. This attitude reflected the conquistador's mindset, which often underestimated the challenges of the environment and the complexity of indigenous societies. Marching inland. After weeks of exploration around Tampa Bay, de Soto led his expedition inland, driven by rumors of wealth that could justify the sacrifices they had faced. However, the journey was not just marked by ambition, but also by a series of horrors and hardships. The Spanish army raided indigenous villages for supplies and information, enslaving inhabitants and leaving destruction in its wake. The natives resisted as best they could, using their knowledge of the land to hinder the enemy's progress. Crossing treacherous swamps, dense forests, and hostile terrains tested the expedition's limits, while tropical diseases devastated both the soldiers and their horses. The relentless pursuit of gold and glory culminated in brutal clashes, notably the Battle of Mabila. This battle was fought against a well-organized indigenous resistance led by Chief Tuscaloosa. Mabila, a fortress built by the natives, became the site of a bloody confrontation. Despite their technological superiority, the Spaniards faced fierce opposition. The battle resulted in a massacre of indigenous people, but also significant losses for the Spanish forces. The confrontation underscored the resilience of the native peoples and the harsh reality awaiting the conquistadors in their march into the unknown. Although de Soto continued his journey, the Battle of Mabila marked a turning point, forcing a reflection on the human and material costs of the expedition. An ambiguous legacy. Hernando de Soto's expedition left a profound impact on the Americas and its inhabitants. While it expanded European knowledge of the geography and peoples of the southeastern United States, the journey left a trail of devastation. Indigenous populations suffered immensely, both from direct violence and from diseases brought by the Spaniards, which decimated entire communities. De Soto's relentless pursuit of wealth at any cost led to the brutal exploitation of native peoples, whose cultures and ways of life were irreversibly altered. The destruction of villages, enslavement of inhabitants, and constant raids weakened local societies, often forcing them to migrate or reorganize after the invasions. De Soto's death in 1542, near the Mississippi River, ended his relentless quest for glory and gold but did not erase the consequences of his passage. Hastily buried in the river to hide his death from the indigenous peoples, De Soto's fate symbolized the transient and destructive nature of the conquest expeditions. Today, his impact is remembered ambiguously, as a milestone in mapping the continent, but also as a painful example of the human and environmental cost of European exploration during the Age of Conquest. His legacy invites reflection on the balance between ambition and moral responsibility.